Hi, Rage fans. It's Kimber Schaefer here with Rage in the Cage OKC News, and it is Rage time again. Rage in the Cage 75 coming your way. And I've got fresh meat. That's what we call people when I've interviewed you for the first time. But you are not fresh meat to the fight scene. This is Bianca Viggiani. And you are debuting for Rage in the Cage in a no-gi grappling match versus Stephanie Madden. But you are, like I said, you're not fresh meat to the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu scene. So tell me a little bit about your accomplishments since you've been started in the MMA industry.
I think I started competing probably 3 months into training and got thrown into an AGF tournament. And I got gold in my first tournament in one of my brackets. And I've just been growing in that as the year progressed. That's all in that same year. I went and did a Mother's Day tournament with my kids and everything, and double placed in that one, always first and second place. And then my most recent was at Nationals in Tulsa in December, and I entered 4 brackets, both of my gi and no gi and my absolute, and I got gold place in both of my absolute and silvers in my regular brackets.
So what do you think has been your reason for success? Why is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, why are you so good at it? What's the secret?
Honestly, I think that it's all by God's grace. I don't know why I am so good at what I do, but I've been put into all these leadership positions and training and everything with Jiu-Jitsu, and I think it's to exemplify him and show that there can be peace and grappling and peace when it comes to this type of event, and there's a lot of empowerment when it comes to that. So,
you know, it's interesting because I've never asked that question of someone, but for some reason I just felt like, you know, I want to know.
Exemplify God.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. And so that was just odd because that was a question I almost felt weird asking. Why do you think you're so good at this? But you literally walked in and 3 months later you were winning gold.
Absolutely. And every single time I sit and I pray with it. And if you see any of my video footage of my wins, I always thank God. Any post that I make, I'm just grateful to have an able body to be able to do this, and I think that I will do everything that I can to keep on pushing it. Every part of it that is me, I will do, and anything else is him.
Now, what made you walk in the door to an MMA gym in the first place and try Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
I've lost 140 pounds since having my second son, and I think hitting the gym and being around people that were more positive and more driven towards higher goals led me to start. I tried a Tough Man in Lawton in 2017 with absolutely no boxing experience, just being fit enough, I thought, to survive 3 minutes in a round. And when I was there, it was a full day thing. We were there till 2 o'clock in the morning that day, and I met a group of the most amazing people that I've ever met. All these fighters, a lot of people that have done a lot of Rage in the Cages, a lot of people that fight locally and around, and they took me in, and I started doing cardio kickboxing. And as the years have progressed, it took 2 years before I even decided to get onto the mats and do jiu-jitsu per se, and I have been training 6 or 7 days a week ever since.
And how many kids do you have?
I have 3 sons.
3 sons.
And they train as well.
Oh, what are their ages?
They are 8, 7, and 3 at the moment.
Nice. So 140 pounds, you did that before starting Jiu-Jitsu and MMA?
Before. I think that when I started, when I did that Tough Man, I was about at 190 pounds. And lately I've been competing closer to around 135. This match is at 150, so I'm just under there right now.
Wow. You know, that your story is just so empowering. You know, there's so many of us, myself included. I've gained 90 pounds in the past 5 years with multiple health issues. And people don't understand bodies, you know, everybody calories in, calories out.
Mm-hmm.
Bodies don't work that way when you've got metabolic disorders and other things going on. So your story is very inspirational. So anything about that weight loss journey that you might want to share?
Just to be consistent and honest, and that with consistency and honesty, there's no possibility of no results. You know what I mean? In some way, you are benefiting yourself with all of the effort that you put into yourself always.
And I you know, and I can't even picture you now. You know, you're so tiny. I mean, you're shorter than I am, of course, and 140 pounds. You know, I'm
about
just
270
like,
about.
yeah, and I can't picture it at all. You know, because you're just so petite now. So
it's a new life.
Yeah. you know, did it bother you when you lost the weight? You know, did the skin and all that stuff?
Um, I had a lot of struggling with my body being in my own way when I had gotten to this point and really committed myself to working all the time. And I think that especially in jiu-jitsu and with the clothes that we wear for training and everything, just training more made it so that I was more comfortable with my body. It was never really about aesthetics as much as like it really inhibiting my motion and my ability to keep moving. And so now I think that when I maintain all of this, it's because my life demands for my body to be functioning a certain way. And the entire fitness journey that I ever started was because I realized as I'm chasing, my two sons are 11 months apart, my first two, that I couldn't keep up with chasing both of them at the same time and bending over and picking them up. So it's definitely a necessity for my life to keep up with three fast boys to be able to keep moving.
Oh, I hear you. I hear you. And, you know, I don't know if you ever struggle with this, but, you know, I ran 7 years ago, actually, ran my first half marathon, and I was actually training for a triathlon when my health issues all kind of come full and center, and mine actually started from overtraining. I didn't know anything about that. I was working out 6 hours a day, and my body shut down, adrenal fatigue. I already had thyroid disorder, and when you have thyroid disorder, you have to be very careful. I didn't know this back then about your adrenals. So, and women, we have to worry about that stuff and overtraining. So has there ever been a point in your life that you've thought, okay, I need to check this?
Yes, last summer even I had gotten down to probably 128 pounds training really hard for a tournament that I had coming up, and I am much better at understanding and listening to my body these days. I am a professional chef. I did go to culinary school. Luckily, I'm able to listen to my body and feed it what it needs a lot of the time. Where I don't always listen to my body is, like you say, I need to remember when my body needs rest and when I need to push harder. But I think that the fact that when you train and you use your body all the time, and it's like your vehicle almost, you are listening to it and you're tuning it up and you're trying to, make sure that it's running well, and you can feel when it's not.
Oh, good. And in my naive state that I was then, it was all about I'm getting healthy, I'm getting tiny, I'm getting small, and I didn't listen to my body. I kept pushing past that, and I was like, oh wow, I just ran 13 miles without stopping, and I ran it in 2 hours and 30 minutes. And,
that plateau goal is very, very exhausting.
It is, and I just kept pushing myself past.
I try to say that it's all a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
The whole thing. And you have to really look at it, even where you're at now, where it's going to be in 20 years. Like, in order to keep my body running that far ahead, is what I'm doing going to deteriorate my knees? Is it going to deteriorate my elbows or hurt me in some way, so that further on I'm going to be inhibited by it? So try not to do that.
That's always my testimony now that I'm on the other side of this and I'm trying to fight my way back to health. I tell everybody, don't take advantage of it in the time and overdo it because you want to get somewhere quicker. And that was in that moment, I was racing from one thing to the other. I was like, okay, I've accomplished my half marathon. Now I want to do, the triathlon.
Yes.
And I was pushing myself. And so I always am interested in, especially when I heard you had lost 140 pounds, how you was able to do that and keep your body healthy, your adrenals, and something I never knew about. I never heard of adrenals. You just don't think of those things.
When you start using your body over and over and over and over, and different things start crashing, I think over these past few years I've experienced all of it. I did suffer from gestational diabetes with all of my pregnancies, so I've had a lot of weird sugar issues and things like that. I think that then, and it's terrible. Hopefully everybody does not need to get to that place where you're crashing and you really need to take a step back and be like, now I need to pay attention to it. I like to tell people in advance, pay attention to your glucose, pay attention to your sodium, adrenals. You have to pay attention to your body.
Well, I hope that there are some other females out there that watch this interview And they're not only touched by your testimony and how God has used you, but how you've been able to really tune into your body and
Absolutely.
learn how to, and don't go the route that I did and not knowing how to do that. I mean, I've learned
Absolutely.
the hard way now, and it affects your whole personality when you're not healthy. It affects
Absolutely.
the person that you are. And so you
Absolutely.
being, how many years ago was it, but you were 270?
This was 7 years ago now, almost 8.
7 years ago. I think you and I flipped-flopped there in our time frames here. But I don't know if you remember back then, but I will tell you, because I'm there now in the unhealthy experience of my body, is it affects who you are as a person. When you
Absolutely.
can't fit into your clothes, when you can't do the things that you want to do or that you've done before, it affects how you are as a person, how you interact as other, what kind of Christian you are.
I think that it is a huge, it depends on who you are as a person and where you started off at earlier on in life. I believe that I was not as strong of a person, or as, not as disciplined, and many ways so many ways I have grown in my faith and in my journey with physical fitness and everything. I was never at that place before. I grew up unhealthy, and I think that it took a lot for me to realize. I really think that having my children made me realize that I just wanted to completely flip around what my purpose was, and what, I did it initially for them, and then it started being shown to me that it matters for me, and making it matter for me really benefits everybody else at the end of the day. So I just, we say very often at church, let me be the vessel, and that's what I'm working towards. I want to be the best, healthiest vessel that I can be for everything that I need to do.
And your kids, I mean, they are being raised with such a strong foundation now, because their mom is a strong person, and you've grown that through having
the future
them.
generations. Absolutely. And that's why I'm so grateful. I coach kids, I coach football, I coach jiu-jitsu. So I hope that they see that in me and that they remember that.
So we're going to go back to the jiu-jitsu, because I don't usually like to jump around in the interview, but this is such an interesting interview to me, just because I know the struggles. I'm obviously dealing with it now myself. I know the struggles of being overweight and then trying to get your body to do what you want it to do, and it doesn't always work out that way. So as far as jiu-jitsu goes, you had already lost the weight when you started, but how has it impacted you since then?
It has impacted my personality. It has given me a lot more discipline, a lot more of a sense of purpose. I feel like I have a shirt that's made, and I've got, a group of people. Some of them think that it's a funny thing, but they understand and they believe me. And my mantra is Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu. And I think that it has made me very aware. I grew up in Boston. I grew up where a lot of people used to fight for petty reasons all the time. I had been involved in those situations before, and I feel like there is a whole different way of being that can exist when the good people are empowered, when the right people are empowered, when the right people know what it is that they need to do. I'm coming out to Waymaker when we come out into the.
I love that song.
Well, when I was at, I think 2 Rage in the Cages ago, it came on, and the entire room was in worship, and all of a sudden, I had never even thought that I would ever be in there. I used to come and watch, and I was like, if I ever did this, I would definitely do this. And when the opportunity came up, there was no question that I'm not gonna go and betray God and not give him his glory here. And no matter what happens, I know that it's going to be something that people remember.
I am so impressed you said that, because it was a Rage in the Cage event. You said
2 ago.
2 ago, and obviously another fighter probably walked out to that song. I don't know if you realize this. The reason that I actually started a media team for Rage in the Cage, which was 7 years ago this October, I believe, was a ministry. This was a ministry to me.
Beautiful.
I don't know if you've followed us that long, but
No, not that long.
when I agreed to do Rage in the Cage, it was not for any monetary reasons. I didn't get paid at all. My my head photographer, videographer, Matt Jackson, and I did it just for fun. But we started a ministry, and we actually had a pastor on staff, and we had a radio show back then, and we did a segment each week. He would do like 2 minutes of basically relating MMA to, God.
Absolutely.
And it was
I
so
love
amazing.
that.
I would love to go back and listen to some of that. We had to stop the radio show because I had a lot of things going on in my life, and I just couldn't keep up with it anymore. And our pastor, he still lives in Shawnee. He is not able to do it anymore because he was working full-time and at Tinker at the time, and he was also pastoring a church full-time.
Beautiful ministry, though.
Yeah.
And I'm very with it.
Yeah, it was, and I feel like, we had veered away from that somewhat. So I'm so glad to hear that it was a Rage in the Cage event. And I remember that moment. I believe that I was in the cage, with my hands up.
It was a beautiful thing to look around and see. It was a very different atmosphere before that song came on. And I'm not sure if the fighter really, put on the song for whatever reason, but just the song being on created an entire different mood in the entire space. And I'm hoping, I've brought people from jiu-jitsu to church that have stayed. I'm praying that I can bring some people the other way around and just show them that it's a very difficult thing to explain to people, that there can be so much peace in what we're learning to do. And I'm just hoping that my life can exemplify that.
Why do you think Jesus chose you and chose Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to be your vehicle?
I have absolutely no idea. And every single time I have any victory or success or growth in leadership in this direction, all I say is just keep giving me the green lights as long as you want me to keep going this direction. There's nothing else I can do. I'm here for it.
Well, I'm here for it too. So
Thanks.
I'm so impressed at your testimony, not just the weight loss testimony, but your testimony and how Jesus is using you in this sport of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I just, it's kind of put a fire under my feet a little bit.
Absolutely. I love that.
And not just my health journey, but also my relationship with my own father and sharing that with Rage in the Cage fans.
Absolutely.
Because, like I said, I feel like we've kind of, the whole reason I started Rage in the Cage, nothing to do with anything other than this was my stage. I interviewed a couple of fighters at that time. I wrote stories about them, and I saw their struggle through life. And I thought, God, there's something better for them. And we actually had at one of our events, Pastor Kerbo, one of the amateur who was the debut fighter, was the first fight of the night. He ended up getting taken away by ambulance. It was so scary because it was one of my first events. And the pastor had prayed over him.
Yes.
And the kid come to know Christ through that interaction.
See?
So
That's what I keep saying. I'm like, no matter what comes of this, the glory for Jesus is going to be there just in me being there. And that's what I'm grateful for, just the opportunity.
Well, I am so grateful too. So anything else about your this actual matchup with you, Nogi, versus Stephanie Madden? I know you don't know much about Stephanie, so.
I know that she trains very hard, and I know that people respect her jiu-jitsu game, and that excites me. I enjoy, I train very often, and I enjoy the game, the puzzle that jiu-jitsu involves. And if I'm paired up against somebody else that loves jiu-jitsu as much as I do, I know it's going to be a good time.
A good time for you and a good time for all the fans.
Absolutely.
For sure. Well, that brings me to one of my last questions is, you're getting in the cage, it's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a Nogi matchup here, but are you ever considering getting in there for MMA fight?
Possibly. I started kickboxing never thinking I would do jiu-jitsu. I started jiu-jitsu never thinking I'd ever be in a cage. So as I step deeper into this world, I will never say never.
All right. Well, sounds good. Hey, you guys, I hope you're fired up for this event and fired up after her testimony right here. Rage in the Cage 75, September 11th. That's on a Friday at the Oklahoma City Farmers Public Market. Do you have tickets in hand?
I do. I have tickets for sale.
She has tickets for sale. You can get them from her personally. You on Facebook?
I am on Facebook, Bianca Viggiani, and also you can go online and click my name.
Awesome. Definitely do that. We can't wait to see you guys there for Rage in the Cage 75, stubwire.com if you can't get your tickets from Bianca in person, and we will see you then.